Okay, everybody, we're back again in the studio with my partner, Eric Howerton, and also a very special guest, our mutual friend, Chuck Hyde.
Good morning, guys.
And we will bring into the conversation momentarily. But in any case, this is...
Hold on. Hold on.
Hey,
hold on.
We have to start out like we always do, Eric. This is another episode of... Big Talk About Small Business.
You know why I did it like that? I saw Justin Timberlake last night.
Oh, I was going to say, you fell off your bicycle?
No, bro.
Okay.
I got some JT in my blood.
Did you?
Yeah, last night.
So you're
went to the BOK in Tulsa, which is a fantastic venue.
It is, yeah. Did you stay at that hotel though? What is the loft next to it?
I did not.
Yeah.
No, we stayed at some Tara booked, like a historic hotel. It's pretty nice. Really good food.
Those loft hotels are just weirder than anything I've ever
Well, I guess we're not getting sponsorship from them ever.
No, we're not.
I mean,
anyway, I'm sorry.
No, but it was awesome. We had pretty good seats, so we're like right there. We got to see that dude, super talented. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, everybody likes a couple of his songs, right? And you can't help it. I mean,
I don't even know any of his songs, man.
Bro, you've heard them.
But I'm an old man.
No, but you've heard them. You would know. Yeah, you've definitely heard him. I mean, he's pretty popular.
I'm a Taylor Swift fan. Okay, after I saw that movie, I was blown away. That Taylor Swift concert movie with my 13-year-old and her 13-year-old friend.
Now you're.
I'm all into Taylor. Yeah, man. I mean, after like 2 or 3 songs of that, I'm like, okay, let's move on to something else. But so he was good.
Yeah, yeah. I forgot. I'm sitting here looking at you like that because I'm trying to remember. I asked Mark what's some of the music that he listens to, and the first thing he said was TLC Waterfalls. And seriously responded like that. I'm like, dude, that's like a paradox, man. I mean, you're there with your looking beautiful with your cap and like you're like sex idol for a lot of people in the community, and then you bust out with some Waterfalls, TLC. You know, I'm like, it just didn't make sense to me. I didn't
say Scrub, at least. Okay,
right?
You know that song?
Yeah.
So I like I like chasing waterfalls. It's okay. We gotta bring Chuck into this. Okay, this guy drove over here.
He did.
All right, he's taking time out of his day. He's a very busy guy.
Yes.
Let's
get professional.
Chuck is somebody I met several years ago through Vistage.
Yep.
He was our local Vistage chair for 2 Vistage groups that I inherited from him for a year and a half or so. But he's well known in the area to all. Mm-hmm. Has had a very interesting career. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Chuck, and how you got started as a management consultant and leadership expert and coach and all the things that you do.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. We're going to have a lot of fun today, but I think that we're already having fun. The strange part of my story is, and people ask me, like, how in the world did you land where you're doing what you're doing when you started as a chemical engineering student in the University of Arkansas? And so, when you're a chemical engineering student, all roads lead to the Gulf is kind of the way things that typically goes.
You must have done really well in high school, though, because you wouldn't be a chemie. Those are the smartest ones usually.
No, I did well in math and science. I mean, so you're like going engineering and well, why chemical? I'm like, I don't know. I got an extra scholarship, so I thought, all the core engineering classes are the same freshman year, so let's just go do it. But I liked it because, and it says something about me maybe that it was, we're dealing with mass and temperature and volume, like things that like you can touch, right? They make sense to me. Electrical engineers, for example, like it's
mystery.
It's a mystery, right? And like the one EE class, I tell a lot of people that, back at the U of A, at the time, the nickname that they made, the EE class, they made non-EEs take, the nickname was Sparks and Magic. And so, you get through Sparks and Magic and you do the rest. So I went to work for a company called Kimberly Clark, so big CPG company. which was, again, very atypical for most chemies, right? Because you're basically in the oil and gas industry, petrochemical industry, and that's where my co-op jobs were.
So you graduated as a chemie?
Graduated as a chemie. I absolutely did. And so Kimberly Clark was doing some regional hiring at the time, and so
Aren't they based in Memphis?
No, headquarters are in Dallas.
Okay.
But then they've got their business headquarters. They're in Neenah, Wisconsin, is where all the CPG stuff is, right? So all the Kleenex, Huggies, Kotex, all that business, all that is in Neenah, Wisconsin. And that's where it started as a paper company.
I see.
Roswell, Georgia, north of Atlanta, that's where all the away-from-home businesses are. So tissue, tissue. The professional healthcare, the non-wovens businesses, all the things that they do. That's in Roswell. And then, again, the world headquarters really is the CEO, the CFO, legal counsel, and those kinds of things. So there were 3 headquarters, if you will. So anyway, got hired in Conway out of school to go and do process engineering. And it was they needed chemies because there was a material science base to it, right? And to a diaper, for example. So there was that level of understanding. And so did that. I was at KC for 12 years, stops in Conway, at Wisconsin at our headquarters, and then South Carolina.
Wow.
At a site there. So 12 years. And in the 12 years there, I had 11 different jobs.
Wow.
Which was, a big part of the answer to your question, like how did he go into consulting, right? Well, it's I don't know how good of an engineer I was. I had to work pretty hard for that degree. There were people that were just, wicked smart, types that just were bones or classes.
Like me.
Yeah.
For example.
Yeah, for example. Case in point. No, that wasn't me.
That's the hardest you've laughed in this entire damn show that we've done.
I told you we would
You
never.
are wicked smart.
Thank you so much, Mark.
It's like the boss and you wicked
math and science would be what I would think of you as smart.
Thank you. Yes, appreciate
But you're smart.
Thank you.
Anyway, go do all that, and so KC was great, but lots of opportunities to do things that were not engineering, right? So got into operations, got into quality, got into regulatory work, lots of different things. So in 12 years, the opportunity to bounce around, and I found out this thing about learning agility, right? Like, okay, you can drop me into a place. In fact, I had one of our professors in school. This is germane to the story. We were the one engineering discipline that was not required to take any computer programming. And I think back in the late 80s, I mean, this is, DOS was still a thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
And so all that was really, BASIC was still a thing, COBOL, all these things. Well, we weren't required to take any of that.
PLC.
We asked our department head one day, it was 3 or 4% of his office, like, hey, why don't we have to do that? And he's like, well, we figure that if we took you guys in an airplane and dropped you out of it over France, at some point you'd learn French. We're like, okay. And we just like, it was the end of the conversation. And so
logic to it, I guess.
Yeah, so like, well, you learn it. You learn it. We don't need to major in it. You got to know enough about it. You can become conversational. You may not be fluent, but you'll be fine.
Sure.
And so we went, okay. So, but that agility, it was something that did pay off for me. And so opportunity to do some leadership development, just in the corporate environment. In 2001, I got opportunity to come down back to Northwest Arkansas, which was home for me, to do some training. It was at Soderquist Leadership, and it was kind of like, man, this is really different, and like I really like what I do. I'm good at it. I've got great sponsorship, which I was starting to discover was a thing inside of corporate environment. A great sponsorship. I'm gonna be a lifer in KC, but you know what? If I really wanted to do something totally different, this would be pretty cool. And went back to work. 4 years later, different series of events that were like, okay, it's time for me to do something different somewhere else.
So let me understand a little bit more on the timeline. So you come back to Northwest Arkansas, still working for.
It was a training. Yeah, it was training. It wasn't work. It wasn't working here. I was in a leadership development course.
Got you. At the Soderquist Center.
At Soderquist, yeah.
Got it.
So I came back and for a Soderquist event, and
And you
Yeah,
dug. I mean, you loved that. That was
Loved
cool.
it. It was like, well, this is really cool. You know, I was kind of fed by that.
Who were your trainers? Can you say? At that time?
Well, you know, as you may know Tony Hawk.
Yeah.
Tony later was the guy that hired me. So Tony's in the area still. You know, doing lots of coaching, consulting work. Tony was the guy that hired me. Of course, Don was the face. Of it all, you know, and you know, it was funny to me because that day, like, he was still active at Walmart. You know, this was 2001, so he was still, I'm pretty sure, still active on the board at least. He had no longer as COO, but like there's this like, oh, there's Don Soderquist. There's Don Soderquist.
No.
As I grew up here, I'm like, well, it's Don.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, everybody knows Don Soderquist, you know. But there's
That's how
all
we
this.
felt about Don Tyson. He was just walking around Fayetteville with his uniform on that said Don.
Right. Yeah, just the khakis, right? It just says Don.
Right.
You know, so and that's the way it was back then.
Yeah.
That's the way it was.
Yeah,
and so it was interesting to me to come back and to see that. And so anyway, all that said, 4 years later, they're looking for a guy like me. I don't really know that, but I'm like, well, I think this might be the time where I just like
15
give it a
years
shot.
at Kimberly Clark then.
12 at KC. Ended up, so skip forward 12 years at Soderquist. The last 8 of those I served as CEO, which was a really privileged opportunity because we had grown into really a consulting firm. When that group started, it was not necessarily that. They were building the MBA program at JBU. They were doing events. They were
It was
coaching.
a nonprofit, wasn't it?
Because it was part of JBU, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
it was a nonprofit.
Okay.
You know, we ran our own P&L. We ran our own, you know, so it was under the umbrella of the university at the time. But we were running our own business, if you will. So we were very outward facing, very market focused.
Sure.
Some things on campus to add value to faculty and students, but for the most part, we were a consulting firm.
Yeah.
Don didn't like that because he was like, we're not consultants. So I'm like, well, like everybody we compete with is a consultant, so I don't know what that makes us, you know.
What did he want you to be?
Well, his point on that, which was actually a healthy cultural thing for us. The consultant, there's a connotation of this parasitic relationship. It's always a self-fulfilling, like you never go away, right? Consultants always just like keep finding reasons to do work.
Of course.
Right? And, you know, Walmart was a target for some of that. He probably had a taste for some of that without, you know, and so he's like, that's not who we are. Like we engage and we release. Like, absolutely, Don. So, you know, so that was what he was actually rejecting is that
it had a finish line to it.
It had a finish line. You had to have a finish line. And so, what was the best part of that period is that in the life cycle of an organization, it's not like, okay, we've worked with you, we'll never see you again. But it was more about when that need came up again, it was time to re-engage on a new initiative, new, you know, whatever it could be. There was a new need that we could help with. And I used to tell our team, like, I wanted to be the first stop shop. I didn't want to be a one-stop shop, right? Because that's the other thing about consultants. Is that we had these videos that our guys did, you know, kind of making fun of consulting and all. There's like, well, what do you do? Well, what do you need, right? You know, and which is, again, kind of a stereotypical not great part of that industry. But I didn't want to be a one-stop shop that served everybody's need, but I did want to be the first stop shop.
Yeah.
Meaning, well, we need X. Well, I don't know. Who we should call? I don't know. Let's call Soderquist, and maybe they'll know. Well, if we could serve
like
that
Ask
need, we could
Markham.
help. What's that?
It's like those commercials, Ask Markham. It's like, I don't know whether I should go out to lunch here or there. Ask Markham.
Yeah. Like I just wanted to be front of mind, right?
Sure.
And so, like, okay, here's who does that work. We don't.
Call Soderquist.
But here's who, you know, we could be a way maker in that way and a route finder, and that's what we were doing. And so, and people would appreciate that, right? And so we understood, you know, who the credible people were doing good work in any given discipline if it wasn't us. And that still stayed with me. Like, again, in my practice today, I'm not trying to do anything. I wanted to. You know, we don't use the term Rolodex anymore, you know, but like I want to keep my Rolodex strong and pay attention to who's doing good work so that when someone comes up with a need, I can say, hey, here's 3 people you should talk to. Let me facilitate that introduction. Go and be well.
Sure.
Right? So that was Don's real hesitation there. So, but 12 years there, we built this firm. And after Don passed away in 2016, and we knew that there were going to be some things that we would do fundamentally different once he could not be or elected not to be involved in our work any longer. And so we were on a plan to exit that for some time, and very good open candid conversations with Don, with his family, just like, hey, we got to be able to ride our bike on our own here. And so we had built and successfully done that. And a year later, it was like, okay, it's time for us to pivot to that next design. Let me finish that. And again, we're part of the university, and so my role effectively reported to the university president and the board of trustees. And I said, hey, here's where I think we need to go. Not sure that I'm the person to lead that or not, but let's talk about that. And so the good news is by then we had a successor ready in place for me. It was evident that, I think it was best for them. It was best for the brand, if you will. It was best for me. It's time for Chuck to have that graceful exit. And so you usually, that orderly transition of duties is kind of a euphemism that it gets used to, he's exiting. It was really about that.
Sure.
Let's have an orderly transition. It can work.
Yeah.
And I think we did that. And so they went on to continue to do work, and I went on to do a single practice. I don't know if you ever would have met Terry, but Terry Bowen was the original Vistage chair in Northwest Arkansas.
Right, I knew that.
Yeah. And so Terry
I met him before.
Terry and I had become friends, and he pulled me in to do that work. And so, 4 years doing executive boards with Vistage, and then the last 3 after Mark, you took that practice over, really just doing individual work. Again, I've got my partners that I will pull in on projects, or they'll pull me in on a project, but that's the nature of it. So
what kind of work is that exactly?
For today?
Yeah.
So really, the core of what I've been doing the last couple of years is kind of a fractional model. And so I had friends that were doing fractional CFOs, fractional CMO. And so I was like, what would it look like to be a fractional strategic officer, fractional operational type person in the same kind of way? And so a big part of what I do when I'm really in the mix that I want to manage around my time is 1 or 2 of those at any given time, just where I'm a de facto member of the executive team.
Sure.
With, again, there's work to be done, and then you're going to invite me to leave one day. All right. And so everything I do is like, I'm going to point out, watch out for that pothole, right? Let's not step in that. Might twist our ankle, right? Or, hey, let me introduce to you a tool or a resource that I think can help take you. I've got a client right now, and it's really about growth. And I said, and so every time I'm talking to their team, I said, you need to understand any conversation we're having, understand the banner over my head is growth enablement. Because you're awesome at what you do today. Over the next 10 years, you expect accelerated growth. You're not designed for that. You're designed for what you are. Now, let's get enabled so that when you do grow, it can actually happen in a healthy, constructive, more efficient way than just some of the chaos and things that can ensue in that way. And so that's the big part of it.
I see.
Right? So a fractional role, still do some executive coaching, and for coaching for me, I tell people all the time, if you ask, there's any brands or versions of what that is. For me, it's sounding board. I call it just like, hey, there's a CEO out there that they just need somebody to knock ideas off of, and it's safe, and it's it's not going to go anywhere, and it may be harebrained, but let's work through that, right? So sounding board and or accountability, right? Like I just need somebody to, no one's going to, as the business owner, who's going to hold me accountable?
Sure.
So some of them literally like, I need somebody who's like, oh man, my meeting with Chuck's in next week. I got to get that thing done that I told him I was going to do, right? So there's people that know they need that built in. So part of my is that. The other part of it is more developmental, particularly for people who are kind of moving into that executive role, and you've got to shift your focus from some of the day-to-day tactical stuff into more of the long-range strategic stuff. And how do you build some of that muscle when you've never been forced to think it? And so we'll put in some, develop some resources that just basically to build muscle. So that executive coaching, and then there's an isolated project here or there. I was in Little Rock last week doing a 1-day workshop with the team on a very specific topic, and so that's the mix of where I spend my time.
Are these generally larger clients, like megacorps, like you came out of?
Not at all. No. All due respect to our big players here in our market and elsewhere. No, I work. It's not that I have to work to stay out of that, but there's a version of scale, like again, Kimberly Clark, a Fortune 100 company, there's a way you got to be, to maneuver and to execute in that kind of environment to be successful and to get things done, which is very different than like some of the things you write. Like when I read your book, Mark, it's like, okay, as an entrepreneur in a startup, like you got nimble and you're everything, you're in everything all the time, right?
Sure.
It's a very different model.
Small, privately held,
quick decision making,
Right.
versus okay, we got to get all the stakeholders on board. Like all that stuff's different, right?
You played that game, though, for so long.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously,
Absolutely.
if you survived as long as you did in that environment, you must have learned something from it.
I without a question learned about it, and I do think that there's
It's a different world.
transferability.
It's a totally different world.
And where that has served me well, particularly in this conversation around this client that I'm working with that needs growth, like when you push against scale, like a lot of clients will say, "Hey, we came out of big business, we came out of corporate." We don't want to
Right.
be that anymore. Like
Yeah.
that's bad. Corporate's bad. I'm like, well, corporate's not necessarily bad. It's I understand your experience within it and
Right.
why you feel that way.
Yes.
But there are some necessary things around scale that you have to, create discipline, that create rhythms that that allow you to grow your business in a way that's
Right.
not just this wild, wild west kind of gunslinger approach.
Sure.
And so starting,
I like that approach, though. Gunslinger.
no, it feels good,
Yeah,
right?
it
feels so good.
It's a rush, right? and it makes the person,
Dude,
because you're kind of
he's faster than I am. That's why I respect and admire you, Mark Zweig. You're
Thanks.
quick, bro. Quick on the draw.
But I mean, both of you guys have been involved in. You guys kind of get that, right? Mark, I don't know how many businesses you started and sold and grown, whatever.
Right.
Eric, you do the same thing. There's a way in which that happens, and at
No, you
some
gotta have
point,
a certain
at some
amount
point
of-
in the life cycle, it demands a certain amount of
structure, and, process, and all those things.
So I could actually add a little bit to that. Like in my case, like I love what you're talking about because in my case on that corporate side, like I know the company needs that. I'm just not the guy for that.
Well, that's the way. A lot of founders find themselves in that
I
position.
think if you're a founder entrepreneur, like to know what your lane is and be good at that
Stay
lane,
in it.
and it's okay. You don't have to freaking be all those things.
absolutely.
You know, you can kind of dream. I remember at one point, I dreamed about running a massive company. You know, that was kind of my goal, and that's fine. But I mean, I think that like over time, I just realized like that's actually not what I actually genuinely want.
Right.
I mean, could I do it if I really worked at it? I probably could because I think it's it's kind of a fun challenge to navigate and grow and get into that. But yeah, at the end of the day, I don't know that I would even like that. I couldn't do it today with my attitude by any stretch of the imaginations, right?
Right.
But
Forget it.
And having enough. Part of the discipline is knowing. Like, don't put myself there when it's not my best use of me.
Yeah, of
I'm going
course.
to surround myself with people that can do that. And that's what they're great at.
A lot of entrepreneurs have a hard time with that, though, because they are do-it-yourselfers.
Yep.
And they did start out doing everything.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's hard for them to let go. I mean, you know that.
Well,
So they think they can try everything, even if they're not good at it.
Yep.
And I would tell you from that entrepreneurial spirit, that startup, and even the corporate executive, there's one of the things that I, in my coaching, I will say is that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
Amen
Right.
to that.
True.
Right? Just
Yeah.
because you can doesn't mean you should. Because you're actually more valuable to the business
Hell yeah.
over here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's
I love
essential.
that. I love that conversation. I mean, it's kind of like JS, my partner,
yeah.
right? We've had him in on the show.
You guys are
well.
complementary
Great.
in your skill set.
I mean, dude, he's the man, right? But I mean,
100%, yeah.
but he needs. I mean, the company needs somebody that's just kind of bouncing, just like digging up stuff. Like just stumbling upon things,
Right.
and bringing them back because that's the innovation of the company. You know,
And I think about probably a lot of your listeners are feeling the thing that Mark you were talking about, like, well, it's my thing and I'm going to do it because I can and I want to, and then the thrill of it and the rush of getting something. But at some point, that discipline to go, okay, actually my highest and best use is over here, and I'm going to have enough discipline to say, no, someone else, I'm going to bring someone else to do that.
Right. Who maybe's better.
Probably better. And so then,
likes it better.
And so like part of my personal leadership philosophy is I want to surround myself with people who are smarter than me.
Hell yeah.
I want to surround myself with people who know things. They're better at their job than I could ever be at that job. Doesn't mean I couldn't. We can figure it out. Smart enough. Well, we can grind through it.
Sure.
But it's going to kind of like suck the life out of me.
Yeah.
Can I give a warning to that though? I mean, just from my experience, you're building a business. People that are smarter than you, absolutely. But I think that you have to, one thing that I learned that was a hard lesson to learn. People that are smarter than you, it means you need to up your game as a manager.
Yes,
bro. Big time, because they're not going to not everyone does things in the best interest of the overall people in the company. You know what I'm saying?
That's not abdication, right? So just because you're better at that than me, you don't abdicate and just vacate the space, right?
There you go. It's such a better way of putting it.
You got to stay in and say,
stay in the game, man.
You're responsible for this part of it, but it's got to tie to the place we're going.
Yeah, and if you brought somebody in like that, and then you got to have other people that are kind of that are watching out as well at a higher level. If I brought in somebody really smart, I'd want a Mark Zweig or you that I really know and trust well to kind of watch over me, because I might not be good at even watching and managing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, but anyway.
I'll say this too. This is what I learned about myself in my last stop at KC. Right, so I was running. There was operations and there was everything else. I had the everything else, and there were 8 functions that reported to me in that unit. And we were a manufacturing plant at the time. I'm not sure what it is today, but at the time it was the largest manufacturing facility KC had in the world. And so I had logistics and planning and finance and environmental and process engineering and quality and all these functions, right? All supporting operations. I had worked at that point and held jobs in 4 of the 8 disciplines that reported to me.
That's good.
I had not worked in the other 4.
Yeah.
And what I realized fairly early, I was a better leader in the areas I had no experience in.
Interesting.
Really?
Because I asked better questions.
Yeah.
I had to understand. I had to seek to understand. So because what I was prone to do in the 4 where I had experience is, hey, that's not how you do that.
That's right.
This is the way I would do it. And because I knew that, I had experience and I had done well in it, and I was like, no, this works. The risk of micromanaging and being on top of people was much greater.
Interesting.
Where I was a better facilitator and question asker and okay, I hear you, but how does that connect here? And so we were discovering stuff, and I think I was a better leader to the 4 functions I had no experience in. That was me. That's my story. I don't think it's necessary. I wouldn't claim that as universal truth. But I saw that about myself. And so where I had done the job, I had to actually work to give that person space to do the job the way they wanted to do it, knowing the outcome still mattered.
That's why you're a good coach, okay? Because you do that. Now, I'm not a coach, all right? I'm a consultant. I'm going to rely on my experience. If you ask me, I'm going to tell you what I think you need to do. But I'm not good. I couldn't do what you do, okay? Well, I totally understand the benefits of that kind of thinking and that kind of a process.
Well,
it's not me.
No, I understand.
So I do see the difference, though, in what you're talking about.
It is different. And the market actually, has room for both types.
It does.
You need that subject matter expert. This is how you do it.
Right. If you wanted to shortcut the process, now, maybe it's not going to be the most innovative, one could say. I don't know.
Well,
maybe that stifles innovation because you've had so much.
Or I think maybe there's if you look at a timeline, I would imagine you want a consultant and you want the coach
at different times.
At different times of the cycle, because that's what really helps it improve. Because you got to have the consultant to activate.
Chuck is really good at making people feel good about themselves. Okay.
Congratulations,
Yeah,
Chuck.
Yes.
For what it's worth, I laughed at the client on the phone. There's this thing. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you. No, I'm laughing at you. I'm laughing at you right now.
I love it.
Now he loves me. We have a good conversation. We have a good relationship, but I had room to do that. But I'm laughing at you.
But let's go back to something else you mentioned, though, Chuck. You brought up the word leadership. Now, you have a new book out, Seasons in Leadership.
Cool.
It's really a great book. It's very easy read, 133 pages, I think.
Bite size, for sure. Yeah.
So tell our audience a little bit about that. And when you say seasons, are we talking about the seasons in the leader's life? Or are we talking about the seasons of the organization?
Well,
where it is.
The second part first, it's the organization, right?
Okay.
And so that book was born out of a client need. And so a couple years ago, CEO comes to me, and we've been doing some work over a period of time with a group of leaders to build capacity, because basically, think of it, everything's favorable. If you're on a bicycle, and like in Northwest Arkansas, we love our bikes, right? Well, you're downhill, you're wind at your back, you're in a peloton, you're going, everything's favorable, and that's the only time you can do 45 miles an hour or faster on a bicycle, right? And it's just like this group of leaders was getting their capacity up was the rate limiting factor to more market, more share, more success, right? So that had been the focus.
Yep. It's a good focus.
Almost overnight, it's as if everything everything changed. Everything that was a tailwind is now a headwind. We're not going downhill, we're going uphill. We're not riding in a group, we're riding solo. So like all the conditions. So now you're not riding 45, you're riding like 10, right? And so the CEO came to me and said, it's a different season, and we have to lead differently. So let's shift our focus, because the market had shifted. It was external forces that had caused it.
Somebody moved their cheese.
Yeah.
Quote another book.
Another book. We have to lead, but credit to her, she said, we've got to lead differently. We've got to change our focus. I said, yeah, you're right. And so there was, part of what I do in my work, again, I'm a curator of tools and books and resources.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't try to do too much original work. Just like here's the smart person that has a great idea on that, or here's a cool tool. So I'm curating, and there was nothing out there on this idea of seasons that I could find, short of.
It's a brilliant idea.
Short of spring, summer, fall, winter.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not going to the table with spring, summer, fall, winter. Like, that would be almost offensive to most entrepreneurs and most leaders I know. Like, your business is way more complex than those 4 seasons. So I said, tell you what, let's try this. Let me build a model out. And I don't have to be right. I just have to provoke thinking. I just have to get your group talking about it. You good with that? And so credit to her. She trusted me. She's like, yeah, let's do. So again, put it in. It's more of a logic sequence that says, okay, the seasons come and go, right? There's a definite start and there's a definite end. They've got some duration, right? And so what's true in this season, parts of that were not true before. And things that were true then are not true now. And so that's kind of how you define a season, right? So, okay, so in that, what characterizes the season we're in? Let's understand what was no longer true is now true. Like, what characterizes that? And so given that, what should our focus be? What should our leadership focus be? What's the message we want to send? And sort of the tone, what's in the leadership role? Ultimately, it all gets to, what do I need our people to believe in this season? I need you to believe something, because that belief is going to inform your assumptions, your judgment. Sure. I need you to exercise your buy-in to the new direction. Like, I need you to believe something. So that's the idea of the book. And so what I try to do is put in some representative seasons. My disclaimers up front is like, it's not an all-inclusive. Like, there are 7 seasons. It's not because there's any magic to that number. It was like, it's time to be done. People, smart people are going to get the point. But it is designed to cause a leader or a group of leaders, a senior team, to go, okay, what season are we just coming out of? And what did we just move into? What season are we in? What season are we going to? And let's talk about that. Let's reflect on that. Like, what is true now? What should our focus be? Ultimately, what do we need our people to believe? And so there's a conversation I was having with a colleague who's trying to help a group in a merger situation. So there's a chapter on mergers and acquisitions. You guys have been through those kinds of things,
Sure.
and you know, so there's some examples, some case study types of things. Say, okay, in a merger and acquisition situation, what was true? What's now true? Ultimately, what do we want our people to believe? And you know, in that one, it's kind of like, well, we need people to believe that we're better together.
Yes.
That's fundamental in a merger,
Absolutely.
right? Like,
Not like it's going to be bad for us.
it's not gonna be bad for you, but
Right.
but we're better together than we are apart. That's
Right.
a fundamental
Right.
belief.
Sure.
If you can get people to believe that and understand how that
Then they'll
begins,
figure out things.
then they're gonna figure out stuff.
Yeah.
And so I tell people, like, it was a different day, but like when I was part of Kimberly Clark when KC bought Scott Paper, and the way in which that took place, there was a design to it, and it made that assimilation of not just their manufacturing assets and their brands, but the working got better because we understood. Okay, there's some, we called it Scott heritage and KC heritage type stuff that we needed to understand. But understanding it. But the point is, in this particular case, and why we were having the conversation last week was, you know, do the people believe that they're better together? Is there, because there's personal jockeying and like who lost their job and who didn't, or who gets to like jobs for everybody? Okay, but you know, like, why do you get that job, and why did we keep your logo, and why did we, you know,
Sure.
like all that stuff?
Yeah.
How do you get people through that?
Yeah.
Is one thing that happens in a business, right?
Right.
And so there's another, you know, client that I'm talking about right now. It's just their season isn't in the book. Like there's not a chapter that I can say, you know, go to chapter 4.
Right.
But
This
the point
is where you are.
point of the book is read chapter 1 that explains the logic. Then pick any one of the other 6.
Yep.
So, you know, chapter 7, one of the 7. Read it, and you've kind of got the idea. But then probe or provoke the reflective work that needs to be done to go, okay, so let's write our own season. Let's fill out this matrix on ourselves. And then let's focus there as leaders. So that's the idea of the book. That's why I wrote it, is where it came from. It's been fun to see how it applies in different contexts and what people are doing with it. So yeah, you know, you're like, oh, one day I'm going to write a book. Well, you talk about it, but you never really think you'll do it. And but when that became after it did work, so like I didn't have to be right, but
Right.
like I'm with that client group and it kind of worked. It's like,
Yeah.
that could be a book. That could have value outside of just this one client. And so yeah, it could be a DIY kind of thing. It can be a workshop. It could be just reflection, whatever. But
It makes sense. I mean, would you call that situational leadership then, or no?
well, I contrast it from situational leadership. So,
Okay.
you know, so like, you know, the Blanchard Hershey model of situational leadership been around forever. He used a lot of my coaching, right? And I contrasted in the book. So I've differentiated between the situation and the season. So the situation being more point in time, more finite. You could take that and say, well, what's our situation? Well, our situation is, so you could blow that out. They're much more on the directing and supporting style of leadership that the model talks about. Not to get too nerdy on that, but the contrast I'm saying is like, let's just actually have a wider time horizon and a bigger scope than just maybe a finite task in this moment. And how do I need to lead? So it's I'd say they're related ideas, but this one is zoomed out a bit.
What do you think about like the seasons of an individual leader's life? Have you ever pondered that?
Like on a personal level, or just in a career?
and their leadership style. Like I can tell you, I am completely different now at 66 than I was when I was 30. As a
absolutely.
leader,
Yeah,
I'm going to be completely different.
yeah. I think the
Agreed.
wisdom.
I agree 100%. Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, I think
That's a good question.
that you know, I agree with the concept for sure, and I think it's when you move from, you know, learning and acquiring and like hustling and doing, you know, types of early career type stuff to later in life where you become more of a teacher and a coach.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a time, and I was still at Sodaquist at the time, and I couldn't figure out why some of our younger early career, you know, team members were struggling with certain ways of which we worked. And I had, by then, you know, had done most of the roles on our team, right? Like I had pretty good idea of things. And they're like, Chuck, the team members say, Chuck, you know all this because you've been here that long, you know it, you do.
Right.
And we were not a big team. We were maybe 30 people at our highest point. So a little bit of scale, but still pretty nimble. And so they were like, Chuck, you've got to become a teacher of the business. Like, you've got to, connect the dot to why. Mm-hmm. And so I think later in life, that ability to move from doer to the leader of the doers, there's
right.
a whole, one of the great books, again, from Curation is the Leadership Pipeline. And there's these stages that leaders go through to the enterprise level. And, when you're leading at enterprise thought level, like, I'm thinking about all of the business, not just a unit, or not just my team, or not just my role, right? And so part of that happens with scope, but I think where you're going, Mark, with just the seasoning of a leader,
Maybe.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm taking my style, but I've got new experiences to add to it. Absolutely, and I think it's the awareness for me. Someone had to point it out that, Chuck, you're now in a season of leadership that you've got to be more of a teacher of the business.
You're just going to respond differently to problems.
Yeah. I'm more thinking like the controversy. This is kind of a controversial conversation because, like, to your point, Mark, like, to be a leader, like, you almost have to have a lot of life experiences in your own life and go through a lot of business experiences to kind of, in order to graduate. Like, I would say you can learn as much as you want in a book, whatever, which is helpful. It's helpful, but I mean, man, I look back.
Mentors are helpful,
very, very much so. But there's a time capacity there. Like, you could mentor me all day long. Like, I mentor my kids all day long. They ain't listening to really anything I say. And I know as a fact that they're going to have to find out the hard way. Right. They're going to run off and they're going to go to college. They're going to miss class and they're going to have to drop out of a class. And it's going to have to be hard knocks a little bit for them. That's an example.
Sure.
But it's the same way, I think, in business. When I was 22 years old as an entrepreneur, man, I had zero clue. But I was going. And then when I was 30, there was some dumb things I did in the beginning as far as just leadership of other people and coaching and, how to multiply yourself and how do you build a team. And I'm still learning that stuff, right?
Of course.
And so, I mean, I think that, like, is a human able to train a good young person to be a true bona fide leader to lead an organization or a team?
Yeah, I think
truly lead.
I think it's a mixture, right? There's no one way.
Is it teachable?
Is it teachable?
I think you can create opportunities, right, through a mentor, through some type of formal education training program. Like, I tell people, like, I got my MBA later. My real MBA was the 4 years I spent in Wisconsin,
right,
like inside the diaper business.
Sure.
Like, that was my MBA. When I got the degree, I took the classes later, like, oh, yeah, that's what we were doing back then, right?
That's a dirty business. No, it's dirty.
Can smell. It's kind of messy for sure. No, we had a lot of fun with that. Those days back in the day, because such big mess. But
it's like
the experience
part.
Fire. You had to, man. And so part of the thing that kept happening to me is I found myself, particularly in that time, with my first leadership role. I had people report. Every member in my team had worked in the facility that I was in longer than I'd been alive.
Yeah.
Boy, that's a hard one.
And I'm their boss, right?
Yeah. Well,
that is a hard situation.
And then going on through. So I found myself having to play up a lot.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
And in terms of experience, I was the kid in the room a lot. What that did for me was create some intensity of and so I remember one time we were in the diaper business. We were running a project, and it was like the second phase on this particular feature of the diaper. And I go into my boss. I was a project leader, and I was like, I got bad news, man. Like, we're gonna have to scrap. We're gonna have to write all the capital we just put in all over North America. We're gonna have to, like, rip it out and do it over. Like, that was the conclusion. Like, that's what I'm bringing to the table, right? Yeah. At an awesome moment, John's like, had the whiteboard in his office. He starts, like, asking me questions, and he starts, writing down my answers, and like at the end, like, he's filling up his whiteboard. at the end, like he literally walked me through that decision would affect our quarterly earnings. It was like that many dollars involved.
That's how serious of a
That's how big. And I was like, and then when I got there, my eyes got big. I was like, oh,
right. Right.
Sorry for bothering you. Like, so like,
As I said, we're going to make this all work.
yeah,
It won't be perfect, but
yeah, and so, but like that experience, like having to like work through that stuff, like he had in that moment, he could have said, "That's dumb. Get out of my office."
Sure, absolutely could.
He could have said,
wanted you to come.
He
to
could have
the
said,
no.
He could have said, "That's
Yeah.
dumb. Here's why.
right.
Get out of my office."
Yeah,
What he
learned from
actually
that guy.
did was, and so anyway, I told him it was like Gary and Doug and all these guys and Steve. They were the three guys who were immediately. I was like, "How until it just did?" And they're like, "He did that to you too?" And like Gary's like, "He did that to you too," and it was his style, right? He was teaching us. And so then when we'd find this, and he would start doing the things like, "Oh, he's doing the thing," right? We'd get excited because we're about to learn something.
Right.
Another boss was like, in this whole idea of like of messing up and failing, like, when he's like, understand you're juggling a lot of balls. Some of them are made of rubber, some are made of crystal. And know which ones are which.
Yeah.
Because of the crystal one, man, you got to catch that one.
That's right.
Yeah.
These other
Exactly.
ones, if it falls, it falls. It drops, it drops. You'll learn a lesson. And so,
Rubber, I like
from,
that
from just
analogy,
priority
too.
management,
It's good.
yeah,
Rubber
because-
balls and crystal balls.
and because and that was a great visual for me as it relates then to people and leadership. I think there's a time when you like, okay, I'm going to let them, like, do you have the courage to let somebody fail or the courage to let somebody struggle for their learning? Like, it takes more time, it costs more money, whatever it does, and you
Right.
know the answer faster.
Right.
And there's times when, like, what you're talking about, like, hey, do it this way.
Yeah, no, you can't do that all
And
the
there
time.
are times
obviously.
when you've got to
Yeah.
back off.
Yeah.
I love, man, that analogy, I am a rubber ball coach all around with my team. And I do love it. Like, there's something intuitive about it that, I'm just like, no, you guys figure out the social campaign. They're like, hey, what do you think? I'm like, I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
No, it's not
I don't
my
want to
domain.
review anything. I want to see what the team does, because this
Right.
is a place that it's got a high enough of a risk that they're nervous,
Right.
right? And it's important for the business, but it's not so bad. I'm over here going like, okay, like I could.
You're not betting the farm on
No,
this.
man, and that could take 2
Right.
weeks, and it's
Sure.
better, and that's the only way they're going
Just
to
let
learn.
them struggle, let them learn, let them grind through it. And
There's no doubt about it.
Love that.
and
That's
build
good
that
analogy.
into them. So I think you can grow it in that way. Again, assuming there's a willing student.
Yeah.
I think you got to have that.
I think the thing is like what I'm kind of trying to encourage is because I remember being young and getting frustrated. That I wasn't being taken seriously in certain conversations. And that was a completely unnecessary emotional experience for me. Like, I didn't have to go through that had I had a good lens on of hey man, like, it's gonna take some freaking time, bro. If I could talk to my younger self,
Oh,
like,
sure.
shut up. Take the time, learn from some of these mentors.
Yeah.
Yeah. And understand you got to go through this, but keep your fire lit. But surround yourself, reach out for help. It's going to take a decade, honestly, for you to kind of develop the things and some of the tools from learnings, from coaching, from mentorship.
Yeah.
And that's why when you start turning the corner of a little bit more maturity, that things start happening for you in your business. I mean, having billionaire and millionaire young folks is an anomaly, right? I mean, it's not the norm.
No, that's right.
You're looking at a press release out of millions and millions of people that are younger that are not that are living actually a very frustrated existence. But you're looking, it's a typical thing. And I just think it's a disservice if that's not communicated, because you should be a little patient with yourself. Know that's going to take some time, and that you can't read a book
No.
and then be a good leader. And you really don't even know what the definition of leadership is. Like, I've met some really excellent, like, including you two, but like some of these other folks, like Mr. Soderquist, like Don Tyson, like Sam Walton, like Doug McMillan, all of them. It's like, bro, like, Latrice Watkins, all of them are just, it's like, they are legit.
Yeah.
Like, the things that they think I don't even know. I'm not even
Think
thinking.
about
It's insane.
Yeah, I hear you. Think about J.B. Hunt
Bro.
Yeah.
and their CEO, who's a 50-year-old
Shelley.
woman.
Shelley.
Shelley.
She's terrific.
And just how you would be able to navigate that kind of a business
And
to get to that level.
It's beautiful.
I mean, you've obviously got to be really smart and really good at dealing with people.
You have to be so in tune.
Yeah, it's
Every
amazing.
freaking second. And I don't think that, like, my younger self, here's what I'm saying. My younger self would have the audacity to go, I could be doing that.
Yeah.
I know.
And you know, and like, give me the job, bro. I'm in. Like, I had that, but I'm like, man, my older self is like, hey,
I know.
no.
It's,
Yeah,
I have
that's
so much
legit.
respect for
Totally.
somebody who could do that.
That's
But you
exactly
look
it.
at,
Yeah.
look at
Yeah.
and the ones that I can say that I know. So whether it was Don, the things you would hear about Mr. Sam, Shelley, for sure, Doug, like they're so people focused, and so they've moved through the ranks. They've established their credibility. They're good at what they do, but they give room for other people to be good at what they do. What you were talking about earlier, Mark, and I'm sorry, Eric. I'll be the meanest thing I call you all day, man.
No, come on. You're right. It is. That hurt.
But they make space, they make capacity for other people to shine, and they know they need it, particularly at that scale.
Now let's talk about a different point of view on that.
All right.
Because it is amazing, and that takes a very unique individual who can do that.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
all would agree, right? My only problem is that when we start looking at them as management researchers, let's take, for example, Good to Great,
Yeah.
where we've got these corporations that have tremendous inertia
Right.
and tons of basically unlimited resources.
Right.
And all these different engines and spark plugs out there firing, okay? And then we start looking at a Doug McMillan or a Shelley or whomever we want to talk about, go, this is the way to be, okay? Now, you got a 30-person company,
Right.
okay? My contention is that a lot of that simply, while it is sort of an ideal state in a way,
And they're perfect.
okay, yeah. It's like, is that going to fly over here? Or
it's-
I
no,
got
it's not.
$25,000
No.
in the bank and my payroll is 50.
Yeah, right.
Okay, this week, and it's Friday.
It's
all
not, man.
I mean,
It is Apple.
And just because they are perfect doesn't make them entrepreneurs. There's a big difference between which we're on an entrepreneur show, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
But I mean, like
That's the
I
thing.
agree with you so much because it's like talking about seasonalities.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm starting a business and I have just zero resources, zero employees, I mean, I don't necessarily need to try to go be a really great leader. I need to go freaking
Put
drive
some
some
on the board.
sales,
You
bro.
gotta drive-
I need to call and I need to
I got to
meet,
collect some. I got to sell something.
That's
Collect
right.
some cash.
There's no polish way to do that, bro.
No, you move
got to
from-
dog it.
I have no time. I can't afford anybody to make any mistake, or we're gone. I mean, it's like,
No, it is.
You know?
In organizational life cycle theory, there's a whole stuff we can nerd out about that we don't have time for today. But like, it's like when the three of us are like, "Hey, let's do the thing." Like, we've got an idea. Like, we do the thing, and it's like the thing hasn't even been birthed yet. Like that takes on a certain air.
Sure.
Okay, now we've signed some papers. Like and we got to go freaking sell, right? Like,
Right.
we have got to put some points up. Well, then all of a sudden you start gaining some traction, and then you go. The model calls it go-go or the wild years. Like everything's opportunity. Like we're over and up to like I can do that. I can do that. Like and all of a
then you
sudden
got to say, you can't do all
you
that.
spread it. It's fun,
Can't do all
man.
that.
And it is like warp speed.
Yeah.
Which and
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, I do what I do.
But that is. But see, and then at some point you realize, okay, I've got to. It's adolescence, right? And you're like, I have to bring a little bit of discipline because the pain of some of the go is self-inflicted, and I've got to create a little
Chuck,
bit, right?
you just gave me the greatest epiphany of my life.
oh my God, what's that?
I'm not and don't want to be grown up. I want to be pre-adolescent to bro.
You're a permanent.
Forever 21, man.
Yeah, and here's I say 18,
I love it.
25.
Yeah, baby.
18, 25.
That's our problem.
Oh, we're 25. We're super
But let's
mature.
bring it full circle. Let's bring it full circle. Which allows you were talking earlier. What do you do best? What gives you energy? Where's your highest value to an organization?
Preteen.
Even if
The startup.
so in the theory is
scrap
once you're at prime, what the authors called the model calls prime. Like we have arrived. We're hitting it on every cylinder. You need someone who produces right points on the board.
Absolutely.
You need some administration, like some systems and some standardization. You need someone who's great at that. You need that entrepreneurial, the pre-teen, like, hey, I got an idea, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the interdependent piece that is, okay, they're thinking about the whole thing. Like, there's
for
pain
sure.
over here, it's felt over there. If something over here has implications there, and they're thinking that way. A leadership, and no one person is going to be good in all four of those things.
That's right.
So you build a team that has actually all four there, and I think a startup and an entrepreneur can get there, right, at the right season. They need to get there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're going to have a gap. They're going to struggle in some of those ways.
They'll peak out. They
peak
won't
out.
evolve.
They age too quickly.
Yeah,
They just, and it's just like they never hit what they could be because.
Here's the one phenomenon, though, that I'm curious if you've ever observed. Okay, and this one I've experienced myself, and I've certainly witnessed it. And that is, let's say your business grows, your organization grows, it matures, it starts taking on the structure, and you've got professional management and in some of the different disciplines that you're not great at, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
You get to a certain stage where, you got good finance and accounting, good IT, somebody running operations, somebody, doing all the things that a business needs to do. What happens when those people decide they don't need the entrepreneur anymore? The entrepreneur is bad. He's a threat. He's a threat to our order. Okay, get rid of the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't listen to her. Don't
we have professional.
Don't invite
management.
her to lunches.
Yeah, we have professional management now. Okay,
Don't have him come to this meeting.
I mean, because I see that a lot. And I understand how people can feel like that, but I also feel like that's when the business many times loses its way.
Absolutely, because they've lost that juice, that energy. Particularly if the entrepreneur was bringing that in that PAEI format we were talking about.
Yeah.
If the hell was PAEI?
Producer, administrator, and
Okay, you just acronym.
I just acronym.
No, that's
Sorry.
beautiful. That's beautiful.
No,
That's,
but if I take the E out of that equation, like now all of a sudden you drop into premature aging, bureaucracy sets in, you lose the innovation, you lose your market edge, you become irrelevant. And I will tell you, I'll tell you this. At Soderquist, we were there, and we had this weird thing that we did. We would soda in front of everything. Like it'd be a soda project or a soda this or a soda that.
Oh, okay.
And so I said, y'all, we've got to not ever become is Sodasaurus. I was protected against becoming Sodasaurus, meaning extinct, right? Just like irrelevant. And it's like we have got to have an edge that keeps us there. And so I think that's the risk. Right.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's well stated.
But here's the flip side of that coin, though, Mark, is when the entrepreneurial founder won't let go,
can't let
go, holding on too tight, and that's everybody in the building defers because we just love him so much. We love
you've
her.
capped out
She's
right
the best,
there.
and you've and now we're not willing to tell her or him
you can't transition.
We don't want to hurt their feelings. Sure. We have so much respect and so much deference.
Yeah. Or fear. Yeah.
Right?
That's
and now the thing, the emperor has no clues and no one's willing to tell.
No, that does happen.
That person, right? And so
you got an organization of order takers and it's dead. Okay? It's not going to be valuable. It's not going to be able to go.
Plateaus off and decays rapidly.
But that's a really interesting inflection point in any organization's development,
without a doubt,
where it gets to that stage, and then which way does it go?
Yeah,
it's hard.
The term and the theory and the research behind it is the founder's trap or the family trap. If it's family business, the family trap. So if you got Gen 2 or Gen 3 now, the founder was awesome, but now Gen 2 and Gen 3, and they're acting in that way, and the business can't address, the elephant in the room is the way Gen 3 is working.
Yeah.
And
that's a hard
their
one.
grandfather never did in that or whatever, right?
Sometimes they do a better job than Gen 1.
No, sometimes
it's true.
They really do.
There's been a lot of cases like that.
Matt Lewis is Gen 4.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
He's taking it to a whole
Killing
new
it,
level.
bro.
And I've seen other businesses that have done that.
You were talking earlier about, we were talking about family. I think it was maybe off air about family in the business, right? It's had the tone you set and sort of some disciplines you exercise to allow that succeeding generation to be who they are and bring the skill they bring. And they're doing things that the founder could never have dreamed of, right? I think there's
a lot
choice
to it.
in all that, and how you,
yes.
particularly in family business, how you do that.
Yes, that's a subject for another day. I did a whole syllabi for or syllabus, I should say. That's the singular, right? Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, who the hell really knows?
Syllabus for a family.
You're the professor, man.
For a family business course.
Yeah, you're like the best writer I've ever met in my life.
No,
You should know.
I get confused. But no, I did one for family business class because there's just so many topics, that are critical to.
It doesn't mean it can't work, but there's new dynamics at play.
There, sure. I mean, I always thought one of the biggest problem family businesses have is good people don't want to work there because they assume that the other family members who are there are going to be treated better than they are.
Sure.
And even if it's not the case, that's the sort of implicit assumption.
Yeah,
That they're
Family
going to
business can only go
monetize.
so far here.
Yeah, and they're going to monetize. And I mean, if you help build a company,
Blood's
you're never going to
thicker
get
than water.
anything.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And so
Yeah, that's
that's
hard.
always a big. I always encourage family business owners to really think about what are you going to do to make sure you could actually have good people want to work here, because that's probably one of your biggest problems.
Demonstrate
Whether you
by
know it or
terminating multiple family members at random times that they will not cut it.
Yes,
Yeah, you've got to be willing to go there.
It's sometimes the family members get treated worse because the founder doesn't want to look like they're
Yeah,
getting
the
them
pendulum
special
swings the
treatment.
other way.
And that's bad. But anyway, well, this is some fascinating stuff,
it.
Chuck. And
Have fun.
You're like a doctor. You have to diagnose these situations and then working with other physicians,
Without a doubt.
guide the
Without a
treatment
doubt.
program,
Without
right?
a doubt. Yeah, otherwise, it's malpractice, man.
Are you taking more clients right now?
Yeah, it's always a cycle, right?
Yeah.
Of business. And so I was telling Mark, coming off a season of really just packed out. I'm really glad the summer's gonna give me a little bit of some breathing room here, and we'll see what the back half of the year looks.
Because I need help. I need help, Chuck, bad, like immediately.
I'd like to have
And
Chuck
long-term.
help me. I just don't have any real businesses right now that he can work on. But
Yeah, no, I mean, I need help.
Chuck just makes you feel good.
He does. I feel
You know,
better right
oh,
now. I feel like there might be, like I don't have to worry.
Every time I ever spend time with Chuck, I feel better at the end of it.
Boy,
not
that's
worse.
very kind.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
It's true. Well, Chuck, we're glad you're here. So if anybody wants to find your book, I know it's on Amazon.
It is. Yep.
Seasons
in Leadership. Yeah.
And as far as being able to reach you, what is your contact?
Easiest way is the website address, C, then the number 3, ADV as an advisor. So C3 Advisors, C3ADV.com. And here's what I thought I had on the book thing.
What's
right?
that?
So, how about we create a promo code that, Big Talk listener, if you want to, you guys can decide what the code is. We'll put it out there.
Just say big talk about small business.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, there's your promo
We'll
code.
post it. We'll post it, and that way you're listening. We'll give you cover the shipping type.
Perfect.
Hey, all right.
Anything helps, man.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because we have millions. Actually, we hit a pretty significant billions of listeners across the world.
I'll send you the information on that, and we'll go it that way.
We did hit a
that's
good
not
threshold, though. It is a good time to celebrate. We did.
Yeah.
We hit a pretty good milestone for our downloads.
Yeah?
just last week. So
You guys, I listen to it. It's good. It's a
Who do you
place.
think's a better host, myself or Mark? I mean, you have to answer immediately.
Chuck thinks you're better, really.
Hell yeah.
Okay, and you are, but he doesn't want to say that because he doesn't want to hurt my feelings.
I don't want to hurt anybody. No,
Okay.
the fact that you guys have great chemistry, and that's what makes this thing work. The fact that you can, because you're gonna have fun. You
Talk some shit like
you
that on
know you're gonna take a tangent. It's like I was telling the guys out of this, you're like, you never know where this thing's gonna go.
No,
Like,
you
okay,
don't.
where's it gonna go? And then you come back. So it's fun. It's a fun listen. It's informative, and you guys are a good team.
I think we need to have Chuck back again
Would love it.
because I've got a couple other topics I'd like to get his input on.
It almost feels like he needs to be back here as our counselor.
I know. It's
on a
like
recurring basis.
we could just like
That's
sit Chuck
like a
over-
reality TV show.
We sit Chuck in
He's right.
here.
It's a Chuck seat.
Then afterward, he could debrief us and tell us what we could do better in a very gentle way.
Big talk
Right?
about Mark and Eric.
I like it. I like
All
the
right.
idea. It's great.
Now, we would love to have you back, Chuck, and it's been great having you here. And I guess we've got to wrap it up.
Yep.
So let's all say our goodbyes, and that this has been another episode of
Big Talk About Small Business. Boom, he busted out some JT. I was hoping he was going to JT it. Because if I did it again, it'd be like, dude, come
there you
on.
go.
That's,
No,
but you brought it in.
There you
go.
That was Chuck.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Big Talk About Small Business. If you have any questions or ideas for upcoming shows, be sure to head over to our website, www.bigtalkaboutsmallbusiness.com, and click on the Ask the Host button for the chance to have your questions answered on the show. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn at Big Talk About Small Business. And be sure to head over to our website to read articles, browse episodes, and ask questions about upcoming shows.